Welcome to Studio Day. Today I'm going to take you through my collage process as I work to complete 4 collages simultaneously. I'll start with how I approach the collage physically, and then I'll go into my thoughts and conceptual rambles behind the art making. So grab some tea, today I'm drinking chai spice, and let's get started. So to begin these collages, I start by creating backgrounds on the jelly plates. For this I use acrylic paint. I use a wide variety of acrylic paint, from the cheap dollar craft paint to the professional Liquitex or golden archival acrylics. It really just depends on what colors are available and what I'd like to create. Then from there, I mix the colors directly on the jelly plate and I layer them up and use various found objects to create textures on the jelly plate. In this background, you can see some white dots, and for that I use different sizes of bubble wrap, but there's nothing that's off limits when it comes to mark making on the jelly plate. I use different sizes of bubble wrap, aluminum foil, produce netting, cardboard. I will draw directly on the jelly plate. If you look closely on the left-hand side, you can see an orange blob, and I actually used a skeleton key directly on the jelly plate to create those layers of textures. So if you find yourself trying this at home, just feel free to experiment. Once the backgrounds are created and they're all dried, from there I go in for a second pass of printmaking, where I will do botanical monoprints of different botanicals and plants that I find in the backyard food forest. For those of you that may be new to the backyard food forest, check out some of my prior videos. I've spent some time documenting that on my YouTube channel. But in short, I've been turning my small urban backyard into a food forest for about 5 years, I would say. These specific flower prints are using nasturtium flowers, which are one of my favorite plants to grow in the backyard food forest for so many reasons. The first reason is that they're super easy to grow. You can plant them directly in the soil outside. They really don't need anything special. And the second reason I love growing these plants is that they are low growing, so they make the perfect living mulch in the backyard food forest. They create a ton of biomass, and they really make a great mulch for when I run out. Additionally, all parts of the nasturtium flower are edible. The flowers are delicious. They taste peppery and fresh, and the green portion of the plants are also this wonderful level of spicy. I love using this plant to make pesto. And lastly, I just love printing these flowers because of their delicate forms. The flowers' delicate forms make for beautiful prints, and the veining in the leaves are some of my favorite botanical details to capture. And their large availability in my backyard makes for plenty of opportunity for me to experiment with different techniques and ways of conveying this botanical. So the backgrounds have been created, the monoprints have dried on top, and from here comes the mixed media collage process, which is pretty organic and random. I like to combine vintage book illustrations, textures created from the printmaking process, and found ephemera that I've been collecting over the years to create my pieces. I've been collecting vintage books that are often too damaged to do anything with, from estate sales, friends, bookshops, etc. And over the years, I've gathered a pretty large amount of these materials for mixed media art making. My favorite type of materials to create with are botanical and children's books from the 50s and 60s. I really enjoy the ink style in the black and white pictures and the articulation in the full color illustration spreads. I really just have a soft spot for those 2 decades and always try to keep my eye out when I'm looking for collage materials. I also enjoy collecting ephemera. I love postcards with handwriting, and I have these film negatives, I think, that I found a big box of at an estate sale that make for wonderful texture builders in my work. Over time, my friends and colleagues will occasionally call and unload some printed treasure onto me from a relative that is trying to downsize. It's enjoyable for me to think about the stories and history behind some of the materials I've gathered over time. For example, I have some school workbooks from the 1920s with these sweet little intimate scrawls inside of them. It's really fun to imagine the butterfly effect of where those humans ended up and lived their lives, maybe just to find out decades later that their kindergarten scrawls made it into a piece of contemporary artwork. That's kind of wild to think about. Once I got all of the collages into a place where I was happy with them, it was time to start gluing them all down. You can see here that I'm using your classic Elmer's purple glue stick, and it works for the time being, but it's not the greatest. It's mostly just an intro fixer. I'm definitely going to go back and seal all of these with an archival acrylic clear coat. Recently, I have also begun to explore block printing and lino cut. I created some stamps that actually look like postage stamps, and then I've also created some other freestanding botanicals not seen in this shot. But I made some maple seeds, growing mystery plants, and fauna. I can't wait to explore this more in a larger size, as I'd like to figure out a way to create bigger pieces in this same style. For this series, I was thinking a lot about the idea of sending postcards. But instead of the idea that we think about where we send postcards from one person to another, I thought about this series in regards to what if my garden sent postcards to us? If a garden could in fact send postcards to us, what might they think about? What would they honor, celebrate, and remember? How would the decades and centuries of a place come through in the language of flowers? Would the whispers of lives and cycles past come up in the network of roots to be expressed as a bloom or reeds in the wind? Additionally, I wanted to explore working in multiples. I've dabbled with this in the past when I was primarily focused on painting, and I really enjoyed it, but it's been a while and I wanted to try it again. I think I'm going to be working like this for the foreseeable future. I enjoy working in multiples, as you're seeing here, because when I hit a roadblock in one piece, I can simultaneously set it aside until the right compositional answer becomes clear, while maintaining fresh eyes straight into the next piece. Where I would normally, on an individual piece, hit a roadblock and just stare and maybe ruminate, maybe try to look for further inspiration elsewhere, I feel like this keeps a faster rhythm that satisfies my need for variety in visual challenges while maintaining my focus and feeling the success of approaching completion. Once everything was securely glued down, I decided that these pieces needed some more detail. I am an illustrator by nature, so I decided to go back in and add some hand-drawn elements. I wanted to accentuate the bold black of the monoprints, and I wanted to just kind of travel throughout the organic forms of the pieces and just add that human touch into the layers of humanness that these collages were starting to embody. I feel like this just added an extra element in variety in the types of marks I was making and the methods and techniques that I was using to just add that little element of illustrative variety. The next step for these pieces is to mat and frame them, and I hope to have them on display somewhere locally in the near future. Another thing I'd really like to do is turn these into an artist book. I'm thinking maybe on one side you'd have the full color print spread, and then on the opposite page there would be a poem, but we'll see where that takes me. If you enjoyed this cozy studio day, check out some of my prior videos. I have a few videos going through the process of creating backgrounds and the botanical monoprints, and plenty of documentation on the backyard food forest adventures. Thank you so much for coming along with me today. Feel free to drop a comment and tell me what you're working on right now. And we'll catch you at the next studio day.